Okay. All right. Hang on a sec. I'm just going to share something at the beginning. This is Naturopathic Doctors for Truth. We are gathering elders and wise NDs and other special guests to open discussion of important topics in naturopathic medicine and to address troubling trends during these times. We don't need to all agree on what the truth is, but we all agree that we need to be free to express our views, whatever those may be. All right. All right. There we go. Now, just give me a moment. I'm going to update the live page. This is just a bit awkward because I have to do this once we've already gone live, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. And then I'm looking forward to getting into our discussion, Emeka.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it too.
Awesome. Okay. Okay, here we go. All right. So, welcome everybody. Welcome. This is NDs for Truth. I am Dr. Moshe Daniel Block. It's been a few weeks that I have had an NDs for Truth live discussion with someone. I'm excited to be speaking today with Emeka Egbuji, who is a naturopathic doctor student at just finished his fourth year, I believe, at Bastyr in Washington. So let me just tell you a little bit about him. You could read this as well on the page. So Emeka is currently studying to become a naturopathic doctor, as I said, and is largely interested in vitalism, which is going to definitely be one of the topics that we're going to talk about today, and the process of how disease manifests and how the body heals. He grew up in both Nigeria and the Philippines, very universal fella, and moved to the United States 11 years ago. In the Philippines, he studied both pharmacy and education and worked in many different arenas, including both as a professional athlete and a high school science teacher. That's awesome. After moving to the US, he worked as a mental health technician for the US Army, where he has worked with a variety of mental health conditions, most often PTSD, adjustment disorders, and domestic abuse. During his time in the Army, he got firsthand experience with how trauma affects the body, both physically and psychologically. He's always been interested in how an individual's mind, body, and spirit all interact to produce health and disease. During his time at Bastyr, he has taken extra courses in Jungian psychology to further his understanding of the psyche and how childhood experience shapes the mind and affects a person's health. Spirituality is a large component of his own personal health, and he has studied different spiritual philosophies, including both Christianity and shamanism. He believes that healing takes transformation of the psyche, the spirit, and the physical body, and that the process is nothing short of miraculous. This is a gentleman after my own heart. A lot of these themes are very important for me as well. So welcome, Emeka.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moshe. Appreciate that.
It's a pleasure. Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. So you were a professional athlete. What was your sport of choice?
Ultimate Frisbee. I played.
You don't say.
Yeah, I did. I played Ultimate Frisbee for the Philippines. I was on the national team. And I represented the Philippines for several years when I was in the Philippines.
That's fantastic. I played Ultimate Frisbee out here in Montreal. Yeah, I played some pretty serious. I wasn't like a pro or anything, but we have a nice gathering of people. There's thousands and thousands of players and a pretty serious league. It's great. I love the sport.
We know all about Canada.
Yeah, oh cool. Yeah.
We know all about Canada. Yeah, you have some really great teams out there.
Definitely some very impressive players. And one thing I like about the sport, it's a sport for our times, you know. Now maybe
Yes.
not at the level that you were playing at, like professionally, but you have men and women playing together, number one, which is very unique amongst sports. You have the players arbitrating themselves. And you
Right.
know, the spirit, the idea of like spirit is very important in the sport, right? Like
Yes, the
spirit
spirit of
is,
the game.
yeah, 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 yeah. So are you still playing Ultimate in America?
When I can, I don't play as I used to. But here and again, I would like throw around the disc, especially with my wife. We go out to the park and we throw the disc around. But
Yeah,
no, professionally, I don't play.
yeah, man. With your build, I thought you were
Unlikely.
gonna say you were like a linebacker or something. You're a professional linebacker. So yeah, cool. So that's really amazing that you've done that. And it sounds like you have quite a bit of life experience. I know it's not polite to ask a gentleman his age, but how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
That's totally fine. I'm 39.
39. Okay.
Yeah, but I feel a lot younger than 39.
Well, yeah, I mean, in 39, to me, that's like I'm 48, so that's
Oh
still
wow, I
like,
couldn't tell.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, all right, man. So you were part of. I wanted to get into some discussion with you about some of your experience in naturopathic medicine as a student. You were also part of the NMSA, which is the Naturopathic Medicine Student Association of, what is that? The chapter of Bastyr,
Right, the Bastia
Washington.
chapter. Yes.
And what was your position, or whatever would you call it there?
Yeah, so my position on the NMSA was the philosophy chair. And
Okay.
so my job description entailed I would create events that was surrounded around the naturopathic philosophy, which would help promote the philosophy to the students. And my goal was not just to reach out to the students, but also to reach out to faculty and staff, especially within the clinic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how was that? Like, how long were you doing that for?
I did that for, I think it was about 6 months. It was a good
Okay.
amount of time. Yeah. I did, but then I stepped away from the position because so the job description entailed that I would host 3 events under the philosophy chair title, and I was gracious enough to be able to find people who were willing to talk for 2 of the events I had put up, and my final event was supposed to be my large event, which was going to bring together not just the Bastyr campuses in Washington and California, but also all the other naturopathic medical schools within the region. So we're talking about NUNM, we're talking about the school out in Illinois, we're talking about some schools in Canada, all the schools in Canada,
Hmm.
um,
Oh,
and
great.
also Puerto Rico. So that was my goal, was to unite all these schools under this event and then talk about vitalism. However, I put together a group of panelists, and the reason I stepped away from the position was because a few students had an issue with one of my panelists, which I didn't agree with. And so the issue around that was that he was the person I had chosen to be on the panel was deemed a racist. And I didn't particularly agree with that statement. I didn't,
Yeah.
if he at all was racist in that at that time, and even now, I didn't care about it because to me, I looked at it this way. As you had said in the intro, which I appreciate that nice intro. I was born and raised in Nigeria. I
Yeah.
lived for 14 years in Nigeria. And when I was in Nigeria, when I was born, I was extremely fair. My complexion was very fair compared to now. I mean, I spent a lot of time under the sun, so I with age, your complexion darkens.
Okay.
And so my peers looked at me as a white person, or they
Hmm.
looked at me as Chinese or some Asian person. And as a result of that, I was exposed to several different kinds of treatments. Um, I was discriminated. I was beat up every day. I was put through a lot of corporal punishments because of the color of my skin. And
Geez.
so when I moved to the Philippines, I was no longer considered a white person or an Asian. I was now considered black because my dad is black.
Right, right.
And I was darker, or as dark as some people who considered me to be black.
Mm.
And in the Philippines, I was exposed again to more racial discrimination. I had people chase me down the street. I had people yell at me. I had people call me names. People spit at me. People burn me with cigarettes.
Oh, yeah,
Chase me with knives. Shoot at me. You can think about the worst things I was exposed to. And so when this person said that this person in the panel was a racist, I told myself, okay, if this person is at all a racist, my hope is that this person has done some work to help change.
Yeah.
And I did some research, and based on my research, I found that yes, this person had done some work and is actively doing work to change. And so I didn't have a problem with this person being on my panel.
You didn't
So I
want to just
told
cancel this person outright because of.
Right, absolutely not. I don't believe in cancel culture. I don't believe in it at all. I believe that if someone has done anything wrong and there's been retribution for it, the person has asked for forgiveness, the person is actively working on changing and transforming their lives, why would I ostracize this person? Why will I constantly put this person through hell to make this person's life difficult when the person is sorry for what they've done? It doesn't make any sense. If a child does something that you don't agree with, you don't constantly beat on the child to make the child to remind the child of what they did.
Right.
People do that, but that's not correct. That's not right.
And that's assuming that what the person did was actually racist, and it wasn't just this hairpin trigger judgment of what racist is today.
Exactly.
So
in my opinion,
your attitude is beautiful. So even if that person had been racist, as long as they're not continuously, flagrantly still like clinging on to their racist ways, you can meet them with an open heart and, forgiveness and stuff like that.
absolutely. And even if they're blatantly racist to my face, I am willing to sit down with them and have a conversation, because I want to know what's going on. I want to know why they're racist. I want to know why they think the way they do. And let's talk about it. Because in my opinion, in my experience, a lot of people who are deemed racist, they don't actually hate the other person. They've just carried that on from someone else who's told them that, oh, Black people are bad, or Chinese people are bad, or whatever the case may be.
Right on. That's amazing. I was in Nigeria myself in 2008 for a month. Oh yeah. I had a dear friend, a family there that brought me over, and I was it was a beautiful experience. I love the people, love the country. Wherever I went, I was called Onyoja. Like
you were in the Igbo land. Okay, that's great.
That's the Igbo, that's right.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm sure there's lots we could talk about from that. I don't want to stray too far from this topic at hand because it's very interesting.
No problem.
Now, would you feel it was appropriate to mention the person that was deemed racist, and if you found that they had actually done something that was legitimately racist in your opinion?
So I don't have a problem mentioning who this person is.
Sure.
This person actually is one of our elders in the profession. His name is Dr. Jared Zeff. I actually had a conversation with him and told him that I will be mentioning his name on this podcast.
Yes.
So I do have permission to do this. And in my opinion, what he said that was deemed racist was not racist. I am a man of different backgrounds. I am a man of many nations.
And you've experienced racism like very poignantly and painfully, right? So, okay.
Right. And so, no, I wouldn't consider what he said to be racist. I consider whatever he said to be a fact that he was pointing out, but people twisted it around and canceled him out and called him a racist, sadly, for that, which is just ridiculous.
I'm familiar with the story. I've consulted with him too. I've spoken about it. I even wrote a song about it
Oh
because I
wow,
was very
nice.
disturbed by the response of the community to what he had done. And he was immediately fired from a
Yes,
position that he had held at NUNM for quite a long time, without an explanation, without anything, without a chance to explain himself. And really, it just shows how sensitive our times are. That a person, he was displaying a conservative view, and I think that there's this sort of a monolithic uh, requirement that everybody has to think the same way, because
right.
there is racism out there. There is
Absolutely.
hatred. There is hatred. And if the people are making this effort to try to end racism, I don't agree with how they're doing it. And part of the way of how they're trying to do it is by this strong, powerful movement of emotional energy that can get very triggered easily, and then everybody has to come and rush to its service. And if there's any opinion which speaks against that monolithic way of saying things, then you're not with us, so you're against us, and therefore you're racist. That's
Exactly.
that's how racist he is. He's not racist. I know the man. He's not racist. And during the 60s, he was standing with blacks fighting for civil rights.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
it's so silly that this man is considered racist and that somebody could wield power in a way to cancel that person. It's a
And
very
that's a
strange
scary
thought.
part.
Yeah,
That's a scary part in our society today. People want to please everyone. And the minute someone says, I don't feel comfortable with this person is a racist. There's so many triggering words nowadays.
yeah.
Racist is one of them. Um, and if someone throws out that word, automatically that person is canceled
That's it.
without
You're
a shadow of a doubt.
guilty. You're
Yeah,
guilty just because you were accused of racism.
right.
I mean, yeah, I know. I know it's very unfortunate. It's very irresponsible.
It is. It is. It is very irresponsible, and it's really sad because, um, and I will defend Dr. Zeph. I've gotten to know him. After this event occurred, I emailed the panel. I told them I was sorry that event wouldn't hold anymore, and I got to actually sit down with him on numerous occasions. I precepted with him, talked with him, and the fact that people think he's racist blows my mind
Yeah,
because I am able to sniff through BS, and this man is not racist. There's no ounce of racism in him.
I'm glad to
I'll
hear
leave it
you
at
say
that.
that, because it really hurt me for him that he had his name dragged through the mud. It's not a nice thing.
No,
Maybe it's a little bit of like a bench press for the ego. It helps you to let go of some of the things you don't need to be attached to, like your reputation and stuff. Fine. But he's been a tireless, wonderful contributor to naturopathic medicine, and in particular to Vitalist naturopathic medicine. He's one of our great
exactly,
elders. And that doesn't defend it if he was racist, right? But he's not racist in addition to that.
exactly,
And
exactly.
yet he does bring some of his elder wisdom to say, hey, people, what you're doing in this cancel kind of woke culture, well, let me say something about that. No, that's it. That makes him racist.
Right.
That's like a child's, it's a very childish opinion to do something like that to someone.
It really is. And he's not the only one, sadly to say. He's not the only one. A lot of our elders today have been canceled because they've said something that was deemed racist.
Yeah,
And unfortunately, the people who are canceling them out, if you zoom out, I think, in my opinion, they're stereotyping them. They're stereotyping them because they're white. They're
yeah,
stereotyping them because they're old men.
yeah.
And in a sense, they are being racially discriminating against them.
Right.
So,
Right. But then you hear the
uh,
likes, the justification for that is, well, it's not racist because there's no power. So the power structure is what determines, this is a woke idea. The
Right.
power structure is what determines something to be racist or not. So you can be racist towards a white person because the power lies in the white person, which I think perpetuates a kind of a mismatching of culture when a lot of people are not even thinking along those lines. It's not even on their radar, you know. Sure,
Right.
there is some segregation, there's some division there. I don't want to say there always will be, but there has been for a long time. But to say that, oh, if you do discrimination against a white person, it's not racism because white people hold the power. I find
Yeah,
that, yeah,
that's
go ahead.
I think that that's just ridiculous. Because first and foremost, yes, there is a lot of history with um, white people and slavery and all of that.
Yes.
But in my opinion, and from the things I've read and things I've studied, the white man, the Caucasian race, is not the only race to blame. Slavery did not just occur because of the Caucasian race. The
Right.
Africans also owned slaves. Africans helped their brothers and sisters get enslaved.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
there's
not
today,
just
even today, there's still slavery in Africa. Africans are still being
absolutely.
enslaved by some of the Arab nations.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, the Arabs were very much involved in it as well.
Yeah.
And this whole thing about white people have the power, and if they're discriminated against, then it's not the same playing field. Discrimination is discrimination. An apple is an apple. There's no way to look at it. If you discriminate against one person, you can't say that if you treat the other person the same way, that it's not discrimination. It is discrimination. However way you want to look at it.
That's right. And the way I see this is that there's a Marxist flavor to all of this kind of woke and cancel culture. And Marxism is about, tearing down the power structure. So there's
Mhm.
these people that have the power, and this was the same thing in Russia, the Marxist movement of Russia, of communist Russia, which resulted in tens of millions of people being killed. So we have to watch out because we're heading towards that.
Right.
But the idea is that, okay, these people have the power, and we got to tear them down. Now, that's justifies, well, however you do it, whether it's you're canceling them, you're calling them names, you are dragging their reputation under the bus, or God forbid, worse, violence. I've heard quite a bit of, stuff, I want to call it Marxist justification. So racism as a response to racism is not racism. Violence as a response to violence is not violence, it's love. I even heard that. um,
What?
yes, this is the sort of
No.
like everything being turned upside down on its head, and you see this in different movements, and I think it's I can understand the appeal, but I don't think there's a lot of wisdom in that.
There's none. In my opinion, there's none. You don't fight fire with fire. Regardless, you're gonna get burned.
Yeah.
So why would you fight racism with racism? The only way to heal from racism is to address racism and go back into the psyche and figure out what's going on and try to heal the root of whatever is causing that racist behavior, that racist narrative in that individual. You don't cancel them out. You don't deny them the opportunity to heal, where in return denying yourself the opportunity to heal when you cancel them out.
That's right.
So
That's right. I like
it
that. That's beautiful. There's a
yeah,
there's a black man in America who actually has meetings with Ku Klux Klan members. And he just brings them a big heart of love, full of love of Jesus. And
yeah,
he actually has healed some of these Ku Klux Klan members who have seen the darkness of their ways and have changed. Like, to me,
right,
that guy's a hero. He should get a Nobel Peace Prize.
right,
He's an
right,
amazing person.
right.
And
But
I
we don't
love you. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, but we don't hear about people like this in our community because it's not popular, you
No,
know?
no, exactly. The mainstream media is trying to make people angry with each other, hateful of each other, and to create division, because divided people are more easy to control. And that is part of
Exactly.
the agenda of what's occurring on our planet today.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
man.
totally agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, I mean, yeah. So by canceling people, by forcing them to, swallow critical race theory, things that are just very extremely unwise ways of dealing with racism. Um, you don't eradicate racism in a person's heart by canceling them or forcing them or intimidating them. That's going to actually make it worse. It's going to
Exactly. It promotes it.
augment. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I mean, like I said, like I shared earlier, I have been racially discriminated. But when I walk down the streets today, I don't walk in fear because I don't believe people are out to get me. I hear a lot of people who say, "Oh, I can't walk down the streets because people are out to get me. This
Yeah.
person looked at me this way because this person is racist." I don't have that narrative playing in my head. And the reason I don't have that narrative playing in my head is because thankfully I've been able to work through my racial trauma. I've been able to work through all of that and heal from that.
Yeah.
So healing from racial trauma is extremely important. It's very possible. And honestly speaking, this whole idea of, oh, we have to cancel out the racists, we have to shut them down, we have to like discriminate against white people, discriminate against people who are racist is not helping the situation. It's instead increasing the situation. It's making it worse.
Yeah.
So
That's right. That's right. Increasing tension, increasing hatred. And that just leads to some kind of like war or some big eruption of, the Me Too movement was initially started with women standing up against something and speaking up against something that's very wrong that we need to address in our culture, in our
right,
world. But then it became, he said something to me. He came on to me, or he touched me inappropriately, or and then it was the response to that, perhaps crossing of a boundary, or
right.
perhaps not crossing of a boundary, but an interpretation of that became as extreme a reaction as if it was full on, sexual abuse.
Right.
And we see that a little bit as well with Dr. Zeff as an example, where what he was doing was, in both of our opinion, not racist in any way whatsoever,
Right.
but it was interpreted as such, and he's been treated and labeled as a racist. That is I find that a very, very extreme label to put on somebody.
It is. It really is, because in this day and age, it can definitely jeopardize people's careers. It You are pegged with this name for the rest of your life, regardless of what accomplishments you've done, regardless of what you have provided to the profession. You will unfortunately be looked upon as a racist
Yes, that's right.
just
And
because people think you're racist, which is sad.
yeah, it's sad. It's sad, and we need to have more discernment and more compassion around that. One of another elder who got into some very hot water, sorry, and the example is with Dr. Andre Sane. I don't know if you know what happened when he was in Chicago. He used the N word, and it wasn't in a hateful way. It was, I consider it pretty ignorant, I was just shaking my head at him using that word. It was a mistake. There's no way of looking at it but a mistake. But as a result of his mistake, they want to cancel him completely, remove everything, all of his work, his writings, his books, to take him completely out of the Homeopathic Association of Naturopathic Physicians. They're the it's a big kerfuffle. And
Right.
I stood up to defend him. Not what he said was right, because it was not right, and he knows
Mhm.
that, and he's very sorry for it, and he's learned his mistake, his lesson. But because he wasn't racist, he was ignorant. But there was no forgiveness. It's a very hard mob. It's a very heartless mob, I want to say, that
Yeah.
has, it's almost like the psyche of thousands and thousands of years of suppressed minorities being mistreated is now erupting out of our culture. And some people are really that don't necessarily deserve all those thousands of years of subjugation being flung at them.
I totally agree. And this is why I always believe, like, if someone says anything that is racially inappropriate, if someone does anything that is racially inappropriate, let us address this individual. Let us figure out, okay, why is this person the way he is? This individual who used the N-word, we don't know what his background is like. We don't know if he had black friends and if they threw around the word casually. We don't
Yeah.
know that, because
Yeah.
in today's culture, that's a common thing. I
Yeah.
was on a walk the other day with my wife, and there were some African American teenagers walking next to us, and I heard one of them throw down the N-word, and I thought to myself, if a white person said that, how would that be taken? But it's okay if it's a black person who says it,
Yeah.
you know? And I just feel like there's a double standard. And it's really unfortunate, because if someone is uncomfortable with what someone says or does, then they peg that person to be a bad person. And then, like you said, their reputation is tarnished and everything just goes down the drain, which is really unfortunate. And but the reality is that we're not having that conversation. We're not trying to figure out, okay, why is this? Why did he say that? Why
Yeah.
does he have these views?
Yeah.
And I totally agree with the whole generational suppression erupting in our day and age. It's true. People
Yeah.
are angry. People, and that's okay. People have the right to be angry. People
Yeah.
should be angry. But
Yeah.
let us channel that anger appropriately.
Yeah.
Let us know how to use that anger so we're healing and we're not causing further division. And I
That's
think
right.
that that's the imbalance here, is because people are angry, they're expressing it, but it's not leading to healing. It's either it's instead causing further division.
That's right. And it's also, if I might say, that anger is, and this is a generalization, a lot of this topic is about generalizations. Racism is a generalization subject. You're talking
Right.
about all white people, all black people. This is why there's problems, because within a given racial grouping, there is huge diversity.
Absolutely.
Massive diversity. You can't say black people are like this. You can't do that. You can't say white people are like this. You can't do that. There is more diversity. Jordan Peterson suggests that the psychological data suggests that there is more diversity between different within a given racial category, like whites or blacks, than there is between different racial
Yeah.
categories.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. And yeah, I really think that part of the problem is a misunderstanding of where healing comes about. So our world is dominated by an allopathic mindset. And
Right.
in allopathic medicine, you you got to remove the symptoms where they exist externally, not internally, right? So now we
Right.
can start talking about vitalism a little bit in this topic. So I don't like to hear racist things, but if somebody calls me, let's say I'm Jewish, they call me a dirty Jew, or like a kike, or like they say, they make a joke about, Jew him down or something. I hear that a lot,
Right.
but I don't internalize it in my worth. First of all, I don't identify with anything beyond being human and beyond being
Yes.
a child of God, right? That's
Right.
how I identify. And secondly, it, if somebody says something to me, I have the power to discern whether or not it's true about me or not. I don't have to
Right.
internalize any hate around it. I don't, that's up to me. And so I think we need to grow up a little bit in this regard as well. You
I
know?
totally agree. I totally agree. I've been called many names I've been called the N-word many times. I've been called so many things. But at the end of the day, like I said earlier, I walk down the street happy. I walk down the street feeling safe because I don't
Yeah.
internalize any of those things. You know, if someone calls
Yeah.
me the N-word, wow, you know, you have some growth to do. You know, that's not, I don't associate myself with that. So that's
Yeah.
just how I am. You know,
I
that's
think
because
it's
I've gone through that process of healing.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Amika. I love what
No,
you're
no problem.
saying. This is really beautiful, and especially because you've been, you lived in Nigeria and you were white skinned, so you were there was hate for you because of that, and because you
Right.
have Asian blood as well, right? Is that right?
Right. Yes, my
And
mom
that
is Filipino
mom is
Taiwanese.
Filipino, and then you go to Philippines, and now you're black, and you're hated for that, and now you come to America, and God knows what racism you've been exposed to,
Exactly.
but you are okay.
I'm
And
totally fine.
and I think if we start with that, that let each person find self-love and learn to discern truth from untruth, learn to recognize that hate when it's coming from someone, that's about them, it's not about the individual.
Right.
I think that will be a very good grounds for, first of all, bringing everything down a notch, all of that emotion,
Yeah.
and that hairpin trigger of like, my blood's boiling because you said this, and then all this fighting, and then it diffuses the need to get everybody else to stop speaking a certain way so that I won't be offended.
Right. Right. In our day and age, you know, people throw around the word, let's create a safe space for people to speak and let's make sure people are heard and all of that. And that's great. I respect people who believe in that. However, the reality is that we don't have a safe space. People need to be able to have difficult conversations. People need to be able to hear difficult things and process them appropriately, so that they can heal. If things trigger other people, if something triggers me, then I obviously have something to work on within myself. And then I ensure that I work on that. I don't say, oh, you upset me, so I don't want to talk to you anymore. You're no longer my friend. I don't want to ever see you again. Well,
Yeah.
that's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. I'm instead hurting myself. I'm not healing from my trauma. I'm not healing from my triggers. I'm ignoring them. And I don't want to do that. So
That's a
yeah,
great, that's I'm so glad to hear you say that. I think this is of huge importance because the wisdom of nature comes into the individual, and it also it moves the sails of the ship of all aspects of the person's life, including how they practice.
absolutely.
So if a person is expecting the outside to change so they can feel safe, then
It's
they
not
will
gonna happen.
also be needing the medicine to do the same thing. The
Right.
medicine will be a reflection of that. And so
Absolutely.
they'll be more prone towards the things that can control the symptoms rather than the healing, the way of working with the healing power of nature in a more vitalistic way.
True. Very true. And people don't realize that we have the power to heal. The human body is designed in of itself to heal. The other day I cut myself, and that's why I'm not waving my right hand because I have a band-aid over it.
Yeah.
But I cut my finger on a grater. I was grating some vegetables. And I realized when I cut myself, I'm like, okay, I'm bleeding. I took a huge chunk of my skin off, but this is gonna heal. If I don't put anything on it, guess what? It will heal.
Yeah.
In several days from now, my skin will regrow, my nail will regrow, and it will heal. I don't need to take anything. I don't need to put anything in my body to make this healing happen. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't put anything in your body to stimulate the vis, to stimulate the vital force in your body to help
Yeah.
heal, but the reality is that people don't understand that their bodies will heal. If their
Yeah.
bodies are not healing the way their bodies are supposed to heal, then there's a deeper issue. And
Yeah.
address that deeper issue. Remove the obstacles to cure, as we say in naturopathic medicine. If you eliminate the obstacles to cure, and then you build on the vital force and you go up the therapeutic order, stimulating the body to heal, guess what? The body will heal. It may
Yeah.
take a while, but the body will eventually heal. You just have to be patient with it and trust the process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I work with a holistic like I am what you might consider a holistic naturopathic doctor. And by holistic, I actually define it as working with the whole, in the sense that the mind is the source of, like illness for the most part, in chronic disease begins in the mind with a misthought.
Yes.
And then the emotion will reflect that, and then the body is actually a reflection of the mind. So what the holism means is that you'll see in the body that which has begun in the mind. You'll see the pathology of the mind reflected in the body. And so that the holism there is that when we work with all aspects of the person, all aspects will resolve together.
Yes.
And that's beautiful. You know, the vital force is hugely involved. The vital force is also a reflection of the mind, that when the mind has some aspect of itself which is out of alignment with its truth, with the truth of the individual, then the vital force will, just like a faithful servant, will comply with that belief and will clog itself or block itself or burn up or whatever it does that the mind is doing. And then the
Right.
body will show that.
Right. I totally agree with that. I was having a conversation with my wife not too long ago, and we were talking about how the body is made up of or the human being is made up of mind, spirit, and body.
Yes.
And if you address symptoms on each level or one level and disregard symptoms on the other level, well, guess what? You're not addressing the whole being. And I personally believe, because of my experience and because of my background, that yes, disease begins in the mind.
Yes.
If the mind is out of balance, then guess what? Anything that comes out of the body, anything that is discharged out of the body, is just a representation of the imbalance in the mind. And so my approach to healing, my approach to medicine is, let us address the mind. If we are able to address the narratives, if we're able to correct the narratives, then we can potentially help the individual relax. We can help the individual stop fighting or fleeing, right? And we can then help the person heal whatever is disturbed, whatever issues may be, whatever trauma is involved. You know, when you think about, like, so science today, they've discovered the connection between the mind and the gut. And there's this mind-gut connection now, you know, and so people who with anxiety or people with SIBO, you know, they notice that, oh yeah, there's a lot of anxiety in themselves. And so it's represented in their discharge through the gut, and vice versa. Well, a lot of people, their treatment approach to that is, let's address only the gut. Well, what about the mind? There's
right. And it could be, you know, it could be that they say, okay, let's address the anxiety, but let's address it as anxiety and not what is causing the anxiety in the person.
Exactly.
So there's different nuances of this. I 100% support that. And the idea of holism here is that some people think, well, I'm holistic because, well, you know, I do massages and I eat healthy and I take Bach flower remedies and I take a homeopathic because of this, and I do this because of this. But there's something, there's the core problem, and all pathology forms around it. So by addressing that, we work in the most holistic fashion that we can, because the mind corrects itself, and then the vital force will then resume its natural healing and restore balance and harmony. And then the body will be a reflection of that. So instead of saying, you know, oh, I'm taking Restox for my knee and I'm doing counseling for my stress with my partner and I'm doing, that's holism. No, there's this unifying principle in holism where everything coalesces around one central issue for a person, that is their karmic pattern, this life lesson that person needs to grow within this lifetime.
Right. And I think that a lot of people are dissociated from the connection. A lot of people are dissociated from their mind, so to speak. And so as a result of that, that leads, generally speaking, that leads to a lot of imbalances within the individual, you
Yes.
know. And so, yeah, it makes perfect sense why people are sick today, because people are dissociated. People are walking around not knowing actually what's going on or where the issues are within their psyche. And if
That's
people
right.
can address their psyche, people can address the healing that needs to take place in their psyche, I can almost guarantee you that people will heal 100%.
That's right. That's right. Very much so. Very much so. And I've even had experiences of people with pretty severe pathology, whose bodies didn't recover that much, but were very much at peace with their condition. And that's another form of healing.
Yeah,
Ideally, I would love to see them fully recover. And I believe that there is that potential for everybody. Maybe we don't know how to tap into that yet fully for certain conditions, you know,
right.
of total degeneration, when there's loss of myelination of the nerves, or complete loss of all cartilage in a joint, or total cirrhosis of the liver. There's quite a few advanced pathologies that are
Right.
difficult to heal, but a person can heal within and be at peace, even if they continue to have symptoms which before drove them crazy because they weren't resolved around them.
Right. Yes. Healing has several stages, right? We know that healing looks differently depending on the individual, depending on the individual's journey. Healing is an individual journey. That's how I like to look at it. And so just because two people with a similar diagnosis have go through a similar type of healing doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to represent, that healing is going to represent the same way in both individuals, but
Definitely.
at the end of the day, what matters is, do they feel at peace?
Yes.
Do they feel content? And
Yes.
if they can truly feel at peace, if they truly feel at peace and content, regardless of the symptoms that are manifesting in their body, regardless of whether they're losing their lives, then that to me is ultimate healing. If I feel at peace, even though I don't have any more legs, or even though
Yes.
my heart is failing, that's healing. I'm
That's healing.
healed.
And that's wisdom of nature, um, expressing itself through that individual. There are individuals who have gone through tremendous challenges. It sounds like you're one of them, Emeka. And there's some people who, you see these inspiring YouTube videos of these people who have no legs, no arms, and no legs, and yet they have this beautiful message to share, and they're joyous. There's
Right.
people who have nothing in a prison of horrors in Siberia, and they achieve a state of bliss. You know,
Yes,
we could transcend our physical existence and to get to a higher place, which I
absolutely.
think is of vital importance, and that's why I focus largely on the mind when I help people, because the mind is where we make our, I want to say, errors with in quotations, because part of that is meant to be, we're meant to go through these errors to learn from them and grow. But at the same time, we still have to recognize where we are making the error of misidentifying ourselves, or misappropriating who we really are, or miss whatever we're doing in the mind, because that's what helps us evolve to remember who we really are. And that is divine. We're beautiful beings, each of us, beautiful beings.
That's very true. We are. We are. And it's important for people to regain their connection, because a lot of people have lost their connection with nature. They need to regain that spiritual connection with nature. Um, yeah,
Yeah. Absolutely. And back to the race thing. When I sit
right.
with somebody, I look in their eyes. I look in their
Yeah,
eyes for who they are. I don't
yeah,
look at their skin color, man. Like that's the least interesting thing about a person is their skin color.
right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's their eyes that hold the message of their Shen, how open their heart is, how deep they are, how much anger they're holding, how hateful they are. You can look in a person's eyes and know very quickly where a person's at, you know, approximately, or at least in that moment, right? You don't know everything about them, but and that's the window to the soul. And the soul is way beyond gender, sexual identification, race, all that stuff.
Totally, totally. I always joke around. I tell my wife, if I were to be locked up in prison, I would go to the African Americans and they would say, no, we don't want you because you're not black enough. I would go to the Asians and they'll say, no, we don't want you because you're black. And I would go to the Caucasian and say, no, we don't want you because you're black and you're Asian. And I have nowhere to go. So
you have nowhere to go. Right, right. And I've worked with some patients who have this issue that they're half black, half white. And same thing. This family doesn't accept them because they're black. That family doesn't accept them because they're white. And it creates, if when they identify with that, this syndrome, which forces them to find the answer, which is that they belong exactly where they are, and it doesn't matter if they don't belong anywhere else. That's the painful nature of this world. It squeezes us into a corner, puts pressure on us in order to force us to evolve to the truth.
right, right.
And we can't protect each other from that. We shouldn't protect each other from that. We should be kind to each other, yeah, but the world can be tough, you know, it can be tough.
The world is tough and the world is not always gracious. Each individual's experience is that it is an individual experience. People go through life, through the journey of life, trying to figure out where they belong, trying to figure out who they are.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, if we constantly put our goals or put our beliefs on, oh, I belong here, I belong there, well, you don't belong anywhere, you
That's
know.
it.
But we have to look within. I always tell people, you have to look within. You have to find who you are within yourself. You have to go deep into your psyche, heal your trauma, heal your emotional trauma. And only through that can you truly find love. Only through that can you truly find peace. And when you are at that level where you are feeling love for yourself, you're feeling love, peace within yourself, you can then be able to transcend out and feel love and peace towards everyone. And so regardless of what people do to you, however people treat you, it's not going to matter, because guess what? You're content. You're good in who you are.
That's right.
And
I dare say that the amount of hate you attract to yourself when you're good with yourself is less than when you are very sensitive and haven't dealt with your stuff and have a, you know, you're very, very wrapped up in the pain of this, the discrimination, say, or the wounding, say. Then you'll keep bringing that energy towards you more.
yes,
I'm not, yeah, okay, all right, yeah, that's you know, this is not, I'm not blaming the victim. I'm not blaming the victim. I've been accused of blaming the victim when I say, you know, just find the love within yourself. Exactly what you just said. I love how you put that. That was golden. And then it won't really matter what people say to you. And then you're blaming the victim. You're blaming the victim. No, I'm not. I'm empowering people toward the truth in themselves that will make them, you know, have a wonderful armor if they do receive some of that, you know, hate flung towards them. It can wash off their backs, you know, like water off a duck's back kind of thing.
Exactly. When I worked in the Philippines as a science teacher, I worked at an international school, and we had a huge amount of diversity. We had students from all over the world. And so there was bound to be racial discrimination. There was definitely, I experienced racial discrimination within the faculty myself. I was discriminated by other Filipinos. And so I was asked a question once. I was like, someone asked me, why don't I get bothered when people say things about me or call me names? And then I had to really think about that. And I said, well, I don't get bothered by someone calling me the N-word because, one, I'm not a nigger. Two, I don't identify with that. I'm not a slave. even if my ancestors were slave, I am not a slave. And so I don't hold that. I don't identify with that. I don't associate with that.
Yeah.
And I'm free from that.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, I am in control of who I am. I am in control of how I choose to respond to the world. And I choose to not respond, to react anyhow, without thought, without critically thinking here. I like to respond in a very calm and calculated way. And that's also because I've been able to go into my psyche. I've been able to help my psyche heal from some of these traumas, or I should say most of these traumas. And as a result of that, I don't respond to stuff like that. If someone calls me things, I'm just like, oh, well, that's your opinion. And I'm not going to be affected because you think this way.
Yes.
I don't associate with that.
That's amazing. I truly have a prayer that your words will reach other people that are suffering from the social engineering and manipulation that's occurring in the media, to really, really be like firing up the racial tension so that they can find peace within themselves. And then, sure, if you want to like work towards education and helping people end racism, God bless you, all the power to you. But start from a peaceful place within yourself, heal yourself first, and then you can heal the world. Don't start to try to heal the world in an effort to heal yourself, because you're going to be very frustrated and you're going to need to cancel everybody that doesn't say exactly what you want them to say and want them to think.
Right.
Yeah.
There's some words of wisdom that go along the lines of this. If you can't take care of your own home, how can you take care of the rest of the world? In order for you to address what's outside of your home, you have to put your own house in order. And a
Yeah.
lot of people ignore their own home. They ignore their own house and they want to go help other people. Well, you
Yeah.
can't do that. I mean, you can, but you're going to fail miserably.
Yeah. You're going to be frustrated.
Yeah.
You're going to be frustrated, or you're going to get high off of an accomplishment, and then you're going to crash after that high comes down, and you're going to need more. And then you're going to start manipulating people because you need them to change to give you that high that you feel is helping you from fixing someone.
Exactly.
So you become manipulative, you become controlling instead of working on yourself, in which case you live and let live. It's a very interesting juxtaposition. So I really have this prayer that people will hear this, that this will go out and people will hear this, and they will come to some more peace, and not be so angry and hateful about things that are wrong, but that there's a different approach to helping heal within the self. I really think that the sort of Marxist energies of that we were talking about before, it's becomes very identity politics. Like everybody falls into, like, the solution is the whole white race must feel guilty and get down on one knee and repent for being white. Like that's the solution in a way. I'm it's not an exaggeration, but there is an aspect of
No.
that that's a
Yeah,
little.
there is an aspect of that, and it's kind of ridiculous for someone to repent for being the color of their skin.
No, for sure. It's ridiculous. So instead of lumping everything together, we have to start with the individual.
Right.
And as naturopathic doctors, when we have done that inner healing work, and you don't have to be perfect. None of us are perfect. It's an ongoing process of healing, because you can keep healing different quantum levels of your being. You start with the simple stuff, and then you go in a little deeper, and then you go in, and before you know it, you're working on some ancient family bloodline, maybe collective stuff. And then you're working on like what it means to be a human, like very philosophically. And then, there's a lot of healing to be done, but the healing has to start with the individual. And then you said you can love others. And then you're really a lot more able to help people heal at the vital level instead of just at the physical level, at the symptom level.
Right.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that.
That's cool.
I strongly believe in transformation. I believe in transformational healing. I'm also a transformational coach. So I help individuals who are willing to have difficult conversations with me and help them actually go through their psyche, help them go through their trauma so that they can at least get a taste of what healing is and heal from their stuff.
That's amazing.
So
Good for you. I don't want to say you're going to be a great naturopathic doctor because you already are. You're already embodying the medicine. And, the thing that you're going to get in a year or so is going to be a piece of paper that just, get the nod off from the institution that now we acknowledge that you've done these studies. But really, you already have the mindset and the makeup to really help people. I could see that. And that's, I think people are going to be very lucky that they get to work with you.
oh,
So,
thank you. I appreciate that a
oh,
lot.
it's true. I can feel that. I can sense that. So I just want to get one piece of clarity about what we started with like 10 years ago when we first started talking on this one. You stepped down from the NMSA because you didn't agree with how they were viewing Dr. Zeph.
Correct. Correct.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and I have nothing against the NMSA. I want to make sure people know that I don't
Yeah.
hate the organization. I don't not agree with the organization. However, this particular situation did not allow me to do the things I had come into the position to do. And as a result of that, it didn't line up with my beliefs. It didn't line up with my values. And so I am not going to fool myself or pretend that I'm going to be something that I'm not. And especially when I'm prevented from doing what I believe is right. So I decided to step down from it.
No, you're a principled person. I commend you for that. I really commend you for that. And really, that's the most powerful message that you have. If you stand and start fighting with people, yeah, okay, you can get your point across, maybe. But for you to say, I don't agree with this, I'm stepping down, that's a powerful statement that hopefully, falls into some fertile soil and will bear fruit. Certainly, you telling the story here is edifying. What I think is very important for our profession to recognize and to mature within. We have to have discussions around race for sure, but I think that there's some trends that the profession is just indiscriminately gobbling up from some of this world movement at division and conquering people's psyches, that there's no discernment. So a lot of the talks on race are not healing. They're just more division. And you have to, it's gaslighting. If let's say you're a white person that, you don't agree with it, you can't say anything. If you do, you're ostracized. And so, yeah, we need to do this in our profession. And this is an example of that kind of a conversation. And I hope there'll be more like this. And I hope that this will really open up people to have more discussion in a calm fashion,
Yeah.
I've invited lots of people to have conversations with me, and people that are so wound up in the side that we're talking about, which is very highly sensitive and safe spaces and woke and cancel culture, all that gestalt of stuff. They don't feel comfortable to have a conversation. They don't feel comfortable. That's saying something, usually they're comfortable if they have their whole crew with them.
Mm-hmm.
But not as individuals. They do not feel comfortable to have a conversation as an individual.
Right.
So they have some growing up to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always invite people to have conversations around difficult topics with myself. And only less than a handful of people have actually taken me up on that. So I'm hoping that people will hear this message and hit me up, let's go talk. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about that. Because I want to have these conversations. I think it's important for people to have these conversations because in order for us to heal, we have to talk about these things. In order for heal, we have to go into these things. We have to feel uncomfortable. That's the reality of it. If people feel comfortable all the time, guess what? They're not going to heal. People need to feel uncomfortable. I want to feel uncomfortable so that I can heal.
Yeah.
So
Our
Yeah,
wounds they're painful. And
they are.
the deeper you go to that original wound that separated you from that innocent, joyous, unthinking about yourself space, the more painful it is.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of healing. That is
Yes.
the beauty of healing, because the deeper you go into your psyche, the deeper you go into your trauma and into healing all of this, you're going to feel pain. Absolutely. You're going to feel tremendous amounts of pain. But if you stick with it and you keep going and you dig deeper, guess what? You will eventually strike water. You will eventually feel the bliss of your healing journey. And that
Mhm.
pain would just be a distant memory. So please, come on, people, please
Please.
don't shy from these things. Let's talk about them. Let's go into them.
Yes, I love that. I'm getting that soul shiver of first of all gratitude for you, of the wisdom that's being spoken, and just feeling very happy that we're having this conversation. So I feel like I want to offer you, like, we don't necessarily have to wrap it up now, but I feel like the energies are maybe coming to some kind of a conclusion. We could have another one like this, Emeka. I'm open
I'm
to that.
I'm open to it too.
We could do another topic, but I would love to offer you, which I like to do with the people that come on NDs for Truth. I would like to offer you an opportunity to express anything in your heart that you'd like to express to the listeners. Some piece of wisdom that you haven't said or you want to say again, or whatever you feel. For just go for it for a couple of minutes here.
All right.
Yeah.
Um, the things I've said today, this evening, does not discount the fact that there's pain in this world. It doesn't ignore the fact that there is racism out there. It doesn't ignore the fact that people are dying as a result of evil and all of that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we have the power. You have the power. You can heal, and you should not depend on someone else to heal you. You have the power within yourself to heal. And it is finding out who you are. It is letting yourself go into your psyche, letting yourself go deep into your childhood traumas to find that person, to find where it was that you got dissociated from yourself, and try to make that connection, try to integrate your traumas so that you can eventually begin to feel. Because the reality is that people are dissociated, and as a result, they've stopped feeling. We
Mm-hmm.
have to feel in order to heal. And once you begin to heal, then you can truly live the way you're supposed to. And this is what I believe. And this is what I practice. I try to practice on a daily basis. And I'm happier today than I was 10 years ago. I'm happier today than I was 5 days ago. So, hey, I think it works. So,
That's awesome. You are a man after my heart. The words that you're speaking, I very much support. I have a program, holistic counseling, that I like to teach naturopathic doctors and students. And it's all about this. It's all about healing the self and understanding the power of the mind and releasing the false beliefs, and then everything follows. Everything
right,
follows. The mind is quantum levels deeper in power and healing ability than just tinkering around and shoving boulders around on the physical.
right.
So yeah, man, this is awesome. This is so awesome. So thank you, Emeka. God bless.
You
Thank you for
too.
your message and for your integrity as well in what you did in the NMSA. And I look forward to encountering you again in some fashion, possibly here on Endies for Truth.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This was fun. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. Me too. You're so welcome. And thanks again. So this is Dr. Moshe.